good with computers as I am, they may not be able to log in during the 15-minute comment period, but finally get to do it after that's exhausted. And I think I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak if there's some technical glitch.
I will let you know if we see anyone.
All right. And with that, my cell phone says it's 6 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order the May meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners. We have a quorum. In fact, we have all 5 members here. And so we will move forward. The first item on the agenda is 15 minutes public comment. And if there is anyone, any member of the public who is on the call and would like to speak, we would invite them to do so now. Again, if there is a member of the public that would like to comment on an issue regarding Norwich Public Utilities, we would encourage them to speak up and log in and deliver their comments to us. All right, hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. But if there is someone out there and they're having technical troubles getting in, please do so during the meeting, and we will redo the public hearing to hear from your comments. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the regular April meeting, and have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion, Bob, to approve the meeting minutes from April 28th, 2020.
Thank you, Bill Wazika. And do we have a second?
I'll second it. It's Mike.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The minutes are approved unanimously. The next thing is the leadership team update, and your meeting material showed a template for the leadership. If there are any questions for Chris or the leadership team on this, you should speak up now.
Steve, can you go to that section?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Oop. Here we go.
Okay, thank you.
Any specific area you'd like to see, Bill?
No, I think I'm all set with it.
Okay.
Is there anything, Steve Becker, is there anything we need to know further about the wastewater treatment update, or are we still where we were essentially at the last meeting?
So essentially where we were the last meeting, Steve, we did have some communications back and forth with DEEP, and we have a webinar or WebEx set up with DEEP on Friday to go over our long-term control plan. If there's anything specific you need, Larry's on the call, we can bring him in. But basically what we're doing is we're looking for the approval of the long-term control plan upgrade we're putting in, or at least a discussion of it, to make sure they're good in concept, and then be ready for anything if the shovel-ready project announcement comes out. We'll be ready for that, but regardless, we want to move forward with them approving our latest plan upgrade.
Okay, thank you. And my other question, the that moved into 243 Ferguson, did that work out well for us?
Well, that's good because we have another occupied building, and I think they're working partially there and partially from home. But it was actually expansion of a DDLC Omni was an expansion of the firm that was over at 40 Wisconsin. So that was kind of good. A opportunity for a business to grow and fill a property that's been vacant for a few years.
They took the whole building, Jeff?
They did.
Okay, good. And Panema Phase 3 is plodding along?
It's plodding along. We're doing some design now on the infrastructure. So we'll be shoring up and following our normal process with the developers agreement once we have all the loads and the rough design for that. So we've been working along with them like we always do.
Okay.
I think in that regard, there had been some concern on the part of the Panema folks about the dams in the back and water. Is that still an issue, or is that?
That is still an issue. They are still owned by First Light, and we have not heard any discussions on that in the last 3 months.
Okay. All right. And the essence of it is what? There's a dispute over who controls what?
Light owns the property, and they have the rights to operate the turbines in the building, but there are vibration issues that are and
Oh, I see.
other issues like that. So it's more of how they're operating the units that's the issue. And once again, we don't have control or ownership of those, so it's out of our purview. But if there's an opportunity to pursue those, if they were not for sale, we would at least take a good look at that.
Okay. And if that's all, we'll move on to the next item, which is financial reports. And while we typically have financial reports at this point on the agenda, for tonight, it's being incorporated into the larger COVID-19 presentation, which is a little later on the agenda. So I think we can just move on to the CMEC update. Stu?
Well, thank you. We haven't had a CMEC meeting since our last get-together, but we did have a couple of committee meetings. The audit committee met on May 7th to talk about issuing RFQs for the outside auditing services. And the committee also discussed our internal audit, the CMEC internal audit, and we chose cybersecurity as the area of interest for 2020. And the committee also discussed the presentation of the draft audited financial statements in open session. The MECA had objected that we had the financial statements reviewed in executive session. It was decided that going forward, we would review the draft financials in open session, and we would retain the executive session to protect communications of potential CMEX staff or the auditors.
And Stu?
Yep, go ahead. Go ahead.
So one's on the same page. The MECA is
He's the Municipal Electric Consumer Advocate, was David Silverstone, appointed by the state. The Budget Committee also met, and we reviewed the quarterly financials, and we discussed the timeline for the 5-year financial plan, and we also discussed the effects of COVID-19 on CMEC, on the CMEC budget. And then this Friday, we have a workshop with CMEC to discuss our NPU's relationship with CMEC and what our contract consists of, and whether or not any effort can be done to mitigate COVID-19 effects on the electric bill or the wholesale electric prices. And that's all I had.
all right. Do we have any questions?
All set.
All right, let's move on to the next item, and it is the APGA SOAR Award. Chris?
Yeah, Bob, we're very proud of, hang on, let me unmute. Yeah, Bob, we're very proud of achieving the American Public Gas Association's Silver SOAR Award. This is an award that's only given to the top performing members of the APGA. And Barry Allison and his team have done a great job and done a lot of hard work to submit the application and do all the things that will allow us to be recognized. and he's going to give a brief overview of the SOAR program and the selection process.
Good evening, everybody. The SOAR program stands for System Operational Achievement Recognition, and it's a program that assesses public gas utilities and benchmarks us against our peers in 4 main areas. And those areas are system integrity, system improvement, employee safety, and workforce development. In our latest round of SOAR, we were asked 107 questions about basically all aspects of our gas system. Our cumulative score was 94%, which, as you know, qualified us for silver level recognition. NPU has earned a silver level recognition for the last 3 SOAR cycles dating back to 2014. These are given out on a 3-year cycle. So 6 years ago we started, and we've received silver ever since. In 2020, throughout the country, there were 9 gold winners, 4 silver, 12 bronze, and an unknown number of companies who didn't meet the minimum criteria. So NPU finished no worse than the top 13 of all participants throughout the country. NPU's 2020 scoring breakdown was as follows. For workforce development, we scored 100%. Some of those topics include our recruitment and retention programs, our succession planning, regular employee performance reviews, training, and employee mobility. For employee safety and system improvement, we scored 95% in both of these categories. For employee safety, they asked about our written safety manuals, our formal training programs, our stop the job permissions for all employees who might see something unsafe. Do we provide fire-resistant clothing to everybody? And do we have a process to investigate our injuries? On the system improvement side, they ask us if we utilize the latest industry technology such as GIS, methane leak detection, mobile workforce solutions, which are us using iPads in the field to access our manuals and our forms that need to be filled out on a daily basis. We offer incentives to encourage converting to natural gas and questions pertaining to pipeline safety management systems. The last category, system integrity, we scored 89%. This is by far the largest and most comprehensive category of the 4. They ask questions such as, do we have and follow a DIMP and public awareness program? Do we have any pending regulatory violations? Do we participate in state call before you dig and damage prevention programs? Do we have processes of communicating procedural or safety changes to all necessary employees? Do we have processes for discovering, grading, documenting, and repairing leaks? And what is our level of lost and unaccounted for gas? So those are really what we were scored upon and asked about. It takes several days to fill out these questions and the involvement of many people. In summary, NPU scored perfectly in a vast majority of the 107 questions asked. This recognition is something we should be, and frankly, internally, are very proud to have achieved. It's really a reflection of the commitment to safety and operational integrity in place at NPU. Certainly the dedication of the guys and women who work our gas infrastructure every day is a big part of this recognition. But it's also a financial commitment by you, the board, and our senior management. It's the support of our GIS, IT, finance departments, as well as the control room. It's really a team effort, and it's a team recognition. And again, we're very proud to have earned it again. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Great, congratulations. Do we have any questions? Hearing none, we can move on. The next thing is presentations, and Chris, I think we have 3 of those. Chris?
3 presentations tonight, Bob. I'm sorry, I was muted again.
That's okay.
And sometimes I'm not speaking correctly, but 3 presentations tonight. The first is on our special payment arrangement, and Jeff Brining will provide an overview of our most recent program to help our customers who are in most need. So, Jeff, why don't you take it away?
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. As with everything, this is uncharted territory for the whole industry. So we're watching everything closely. And one of the advantages of being a municipal utility is we're able to adjust quickly to our customers' needs as well as the direction that everything is going. So Steve, if you want to go to the next slide. This is a quick snapshot of where we are in arrears. The COVID presentation will go into a little more detail as to what this means for receivables and overall revenues. But I just kind of wanted to give you a snapshot of where we're at as far as the total number of customers past due in each of these three, actually four major categories, and the total dollar value. That's up about 35% from where it was this time, or exactly a month ago. But I will say that, not that there's any good news in all of this, but the positive I will say is it's not nearly as significant as we feared that it could be. So it's something we're working very diligently with across all our customers. And then I'll give you an example of what we're doing here with the payment program. But it's again, there are a lot of positives in this, and very impressed with with no ability to shut anyone off, how customers have been working very hard to make it minimum partial and regular payments. I'll get into this a little more going forward, but the moratorium has been extended to July 1st. That's statewide. And a couple of things that are helping this, we are seeing funds starting to come in on the commercial side with the Paycheck Protection Program, and customers passing portions of those funds along to us. So we've seen a little bit of they talk about the level off of the curve in the virus. We're also seeing a little bit of a level off in the curve on the past due balances as well. TVCCA, those programs continue. We've received $150,000 from them in the last 2 months. Our matching payment program, that's something we do every year. We're trying to maintain as much business as usual where we can. So customers who made payments and committed to the program, we matched our half of it. And basically, that's $180,000 that we wouldn't have gotten in the door generally any other way. There's also unemployment and stimulus payments that have come in, and as those start to flow, we see that in our receivables as well. You want to go to the next slide? Oh, there we go, right there. All right, so PURA, the Public Utility Regulatory Authority, most may be familiar, they regulate the investor-owned utilities. MPU is not regulated by PURA when it comes to rates and collection policies and things like that. However, we try to parallel those programs where it makes sense, and they've tried to group together. There've been a bunch of executive orders that have come from PURA, but basically there was the one away.
Hold on, Chris. Hold on, Jeff.
There you go. All right, we'll get there.
Sorry about that.
So the first order came out. That was just an initial reaction to say, we don't know what's going on. Let's make sure we don't shut any residential customers off. Then came orders 2 through 4. And again, I've grouped them here, which extended shut off the moratorium where couldn't shut any customers off until May 1st. That included commercial customers that weren't included originally. It also suspends, doesn't eliminate, but it suspends all security deposits. And on the investor owned, I just thought this was an interesting point. They started putting in place a mechanism to track the additional costs associated with the delay or loss of revenue associated with these programs. Then as the virus continued, orders 5 through 8 came out in the end of April. That pushed them shut off moratorium back to June 1st, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes back further than that. We will see. And a major component of that is the basis of what I'm going to talk about tonight, and that is the requirement to come up with a payment plan that goes out to 24 months by the middle of next month that can be offered to all customers and have those details. There's also extensive communication requirements associated with that as well. So this is in line with a lot of what we've already been doing, but we were able to tweak it. Steve, if you want to go ahead, another slide.
Hold on. Delayed action here.
All right, great. Um, so our COVID policy, again, we've met or exceeded all PURA requirements. Um, Again, we're not regulated by PURA, but in this case, it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing for our customers. So we have followed suit and again, customized that to what our customers specifically would benefit from. So no service terminations. That was for all customers. We enacted that back on the 13th of March. Right off the bat, suspended deposits. We have offered payment plans all along. This is not a new thing for NPU. We call them SPAs, special payment arrangements. Some 400 of those on the books right now, but obviously that's picked up considerably. Again, I've talked about this all along. Partial but regular payments encouraged. Communication encouraged. Always looking to help customers that are reaching out and working on helping themselves. The special payment arrangement, that allows flexible terms, again, up to the 24 months. We already had that in our CIS system. And again, there's 400 of those to date. So it really wasn't a hard thing for us to implement. And go ahead to the next slide, Steve. So we launched the program officially on the 12th. Again, I'm going to say this is a special enhanced payment arrangement. Customers must sign up by July 1st. And again, we'll be watching this as things evolve, and there may be additional accommodations or maybe lengthen things out depending. But right now, that's the deadline that we're working towards. Terms up to 24 months. I've been looking through the list. Some of them go out that far, some of them don't. It really depends. Again, you must pay your current charges plus, and that's the part we're going to be looking at, because there may be businesses and individuals that aren't in a position to do that up front. So, but we got to start somewhere. And again, it applies to any balance. So if there's a pre-COVID past due balance, we're going to roll all that in, get one payment arrangement, and then work on that going forward. So that'll help keep things from compounding for customers. We've done it. Yes, go ahead.
Bill Zika, how do you assess the financial wherewithal of residential customers, whether they can pay or not pay?
That's a great question, Bill. And that's one of the things that we as a utility aren't in the business of.
Right.
We don't do income verification. We rely on social service such as TVCCA to do things like that. So what we've done is we've made the program basically, if a customer is in need, then we're going to work with them, and we're not going to do an income verification or anything like that, because customers may have worked very hard to stay current, but may be in a difficult situation and in need of some assistance. So to answer your question, we don't do any financial verification. It's available to everyone.
Thank you, Jeff.
Great, thank you. So we did an extensive communication on this, and again, this is where we shine. Got things out on social media. I know Chris has mentioned we have 5,000 plus followers on that site now, which is really helpful. Information on our website. We have a bill statement that goes out and a message block in there that provides information on this program. And this was one of the requirements of the state program, but something that we would do anyway. Any customer who's past due, we will proactively reach out to them and offer information on this program, in addition to other assistance information that we've been providing right along. So this dovetails nicely into what we were already doing. Go ahead, Steve. All right, so here's where we're at right now. And again, we started this only about 2 weeks ago. We already have 148 payment arrangements in place. So that's not the 400 I was talking about originally. There's 148 new ones associated specifically with this program. We're going to continue to work with customers on an ongoing basis. Proactive communication, and we want to encourage people to get in touch with us, no matter whether they're capable of meeting the terms of the agreement or not. Call us, talk to us, and we'll figure it out. What is really tough is when you reach out to a customer on multiple occasions and they just don't even respond. And so that's where we do reserve the right to revisit termination down the road if a business or an individual has done absolutely nothing to reach out and work with us. We'll be assessing the next phases of the program. And again, like I said, that July 1st deadline, that's coming up in a little bit over a month. And if there's further action that makes sense to take, as always, we'll take it. So anyway, so this is, I think, something that fit right in with what we've been doing. And I'll open it up at this point for any questions anyone has on this or anything related.
All right. Do any of the commissioners have questions?
So Jeff, it's Steve Becker. I think
Jeff.
what you're implying is the impact is at this point less than we thought it could be. Is that correct?
Correct. So the news isn't great, and we'll hear more about that in the next presentation, but it's not as bad as it could have been. And I give the credit to that to two things. One, the efforts that the staff has made to work with people and help people, and the effort that the customers have made to pay what they can and understand that we're all in business together. So between those two, and then our partners, in the city and chambers and NCDC and others who help work with us, it's just been very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, let me go backwards for a second. We heard about the very impressive award that we won for the gas service that we supply. But the agenda also included an award, a resolution congratulating the gas department employees, and I managed to skip right over that. So you should have seen the resolution in the packet, and if you had a chance to read it, I'd love to entertain a motion to approve the resolution and congratulate these highly deserving gas employees.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a
Second,
second?
Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Now, getting back to the actual flow of the agenda, the next thing is COVID-19 actions and plan update presentation.
All right, Bob. Laura is going to provide an update of our financial position, and I'll follow up with our operational status and the next steps. In an effort to minimize the exposure, of the COVID-19, we've gone through a lot of work making financial reports, making sure everyone is tightening their belt wherever they can, and doing the best we can to work with our customers to make sure we're still providing the necessary essential services for all our customers. Laura, you kick it off?
Yes. Steve, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so we've updated our financial forecast to include actuals through April 30th and forecast through June 30th for the projected impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Reforecasting includes the changes to sales revenues, collections, reductions in expenditures, and the overall impact on cash reserves. And these forecasts are based on actual data when available and assumptions as noted. Next slide, please. Start with revenue. In the fiscal 20 budget, revenue from May 1st to June 30th was forecasted to be $14.9 million. Our revised forecast based on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic for the same period is $12.8 million in revenue, which is a reduction of $1 million per month, a decrease of 14%. Next slide, please. So our original assumptions were based on the estimated impact of the pandemic on sales, and we now have a complete month of data and are able to reforecast using this trending information. Our original forecast had the same percentage change across all 4 divisions, gas, electric, water, and sewer. And the new adjustments are individualized for each division. And here are our average forecasted changes. Residential, a 5% increase. Commercial, a 32% decrease. Industrial, a 16.5% decrease. Public, 24.5% decrease. Interdepartmental, a 13% decrease. The results this results in $892,000 per month reduction in our sales revenues. Other revenues reduced interest for our penalties due to the reduced interest rates and decreased sales at our CNG stations. Next slide, please.
So Laura, if I could just quickly ask a question. Given the projection, and obviously that could change, I suppose, but given the projection through June 30th, what do you see the impact being on our 10% contribution to the city and, relative to, let's say, what we're contributing this year to the budget or last year to the budget?
I would anticipate that it would be slightly lower than where we are for the current year. Over the course of fiscal year 20, we've seen lowered sales. The first impact would be the warmer than normal winter, which impacted our sales for our heating season.
Yeah.
And then right from there, we rolled into pandemic operations.
Okay.
We can work on doing a forecast for that, projecting based on today what that could look like, and that would be the contribution for the fiscal year 22 budget.
Okay.
Next slide, please, Steve. So, did I skip a slide? Can we go back one? Okay. Receivables, there we go. So we are forecasting a total monthly cash receipt reduction of $1.4 million. Based on the data from our top 100 customers, we're forecasting a decrease in cash received towards billings of $279,000 a month. And utilizing that data and applying the collections percentage to the commercial base, the customer base for commercial, industrial, and public, we're forecasting a $236,000 reduction per month in cash receipts towards billing. Next slide, please. On the residential side, we currently have about 1,500 existing hardship customers. We generally receive about half of that balance. Our forecast is that none of it would be received, and this would be $206,000 per month reduction in cash receipts for May and June. And we're forecasting an additional $680,000 reduction in monthly receipts from our residential customers, based on customers who've notified us that they're pay, and also a 10% contingency. Next slide. So now we'll look at expenses. We continue to meet regularly with the leadership team at NTU, and have identified over $500,000 per month in expense reduction through the end of the fiscal year, which is a 12% decrease. Not included in these forecasts are projects that have full reimbursement from other sources, projects funded by the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and the Gas Extension. Next slide, please. Energy costs have been updated based on our revenue assumptions. We're forecasting that purchase gas costs will decrease by $13,000 per month, and that purchase power costs will decrease by $77,000 per month. And these expenses, the majority of the costs are fixed and not variable based on volume. Payroll costs have been reduced by over $100,000 per month, and we've reduced overtime by 95%. The total reductions in expenses for May are over $1 million.
Can I ask a question, please, Laura? It's Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you. On the purchase power, what does it mean that the majority of the purchase power costs are fixed? Please.
So regardless of the volume of our sales, there are certain costs that are part of our power that are fixed that we will have to pay if we sell 1 kilowatt or 100,000 kilowatts.
Like certain things in the tracking, you mean, like the capital tracker part of it? Is that what you're talking about?
Nope. These are the expenses that are billed to us every month by CMEX.
We're going to go into great detail on that, Mike, on Friday. And they'll go into what's fixed, what they have hedged, and what's why it's somewhat lower, but and what they can have control over.
I'm sorry, was that this Friday, please? I wasn't sure what the time was for that.
This Friday, Mike, at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Okay, thank you.
3:30. It's in the afternoon on Friday. Either 3 or 3:30.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. how does all of this affect our cash balances? Based on our actual activity through April 30th and the approved budget through June 30th, the original projection for $43.5 million cash balance at the end of the year. Due to the forecasted impact of the pandemic on receivables and expenses, our cash balances are now projected to decrease by $3.7 million to $39.8 million at the end of the fiscal year, which is a decrease of 8.5%. And the table at the bottom of the slide shows the forecasted changes in receivables, revenues, and expenses as a result of this. Next slide, please. This chart shows our department cash balance and our forecast. The actuals through April are the solid black line. The original forecast is the dotted black line, and the reforecast based on our pandemic operations is the dotted red line. And so we can see a $3.7 million projected decrease from our original forecast.
Laura, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
I know we have to have cash reserves for certain debt obligations and other things that are tied to those specific uses. When we show 43.5 million in forecasted cash balance, is that unencumbered or is it encumbered by, or at least partially encumbered?
It's all operational dollars. So within here, we would have our operations, our capital tracker, and our dollars, the PPA and the PGA. So this is all the dollars that we use every day to maintain our operations.
Okay.
This would include dollars that are restricted, such as the drinking water state revolving fund, all the reserve accounts, and those types of balances.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Next slide, please. And these charts show the cash impact on each division. Gas and electric, left to right across the top, water and sewer, left to right across the bottom. Actual through April, solid black line. The dotted black line is the original forecast, and the red line is our revised pandemic forecast. Next slide, please. Chris, did you want to walk through the next two slides, or do you want me to do these and then take the last one?
I've got this one, Laura.
Okay, great.
Okay, so basically, as we're trying to minimize our exposure of the virus to our workforce and minimize spending, we focused on the performing only emergency work. And we've deferred as much non-time critical maintenance as we can, delaying items like tree trimming, bridge inspections, fleet maintenance, and lagoon maintenance. Many of these items can be delayed for 3 to 6 months without having long-term implications, but we've got to be very careful as we go forward to make sure that we're not causing major problems for our reliability. One of the things that we've worked very hard on is with the unions is to allow more flexibility in the work week, and by allowing overtime to essentially be eliminated by allowing us the flexibility of that the unions have afforded us. So this is saving us in a monthly reduction of roughly $100,000 a month. So this is really critical, and the unions have worked very hard to help us with that. They've also agreed to defer the July 1st contractual raises until December of 2020, resulting in additional savings of $187,000. So unions are working with us and doing the best they can to get us through this pandemic. Go to the next slide, Steve. We've also deferred the majority of our capital project work. Instead of doing line upgrades that require a lot of money for things like copper and wire and transformers, we're doing pole replacements, which need to be done, but are higher in labor costs, much lower in material costs, and therefore we're saving substantial amounts of money. We're also doing less work in our substations and we're going to save this year about $300,000. Other projects like the South Golden Street parking lot pavement was scheduled for this spring, but we're delaying that till the fourth quarter of fiscal year 21, and other replacements of the boilers at the LNG plant and in our DIMP work, which is replacing the gas pipe in the ground, we're moving from expensive city roads, state roads rather, which require a lot of paving, to city roads, which are much more cost effective. We've delayed the Atrabando regulator station and also the boiler at the replacement at Deep River. So we're doing as much as we can to minimize any capital expenditures for this year. We're also using financing to help minimize the cash impact. So we had some major switches and critical IT infrastructure that were at the end of life. And instead of buying them immediately with cash, we were able to procure 5-year financing on those critical switches. So it didn't impact the cash this year. Also, the water and gas bonded projects, we're keeping going on schedule. They're paid over 20 years. There are projects we've already started, so we don't have to delay those and impact the quality that the water projects are going to provide for our water system, or likewise for the AMI gas meters, which have already been scheduled for replacement, and we'll keep those projects moving along. Can you go to the next slide, Steve? The one thing that we can say is, as far as the customers, is business as usual. We've handled large power outages. We have had numerous sewer backups and water main breaks. Not that we're excited to be doing these things. We prefer to have everything running normally, but our crews have responded and are used to the PPE and are doing things safely and restoring power and water and gas service to our customers and sewer service to our customers. We're also making sure that we're doing the critical things for regulatory requirements. We are doing our natural gas annual leak survey to make sure our system is safe for our customers. We're doing the same amount of water and sewer testing to make sure that all of our services are safe and reliable for our customers. And Chris Riley and his team has been doing a very good job of reaching out proactively to the media, the social media, and all of the, even WICH, to make sure that the community understands what's going on at NPU. We're here to, as business as usual, and we're letting them know about the special payment arrangements and the other programs we're providing for the customers.
Chris, I have to say you did an excellent job on the Stu Breyer show.
No, thanks, Bill. For the next steps, we're going to continue to support our customers, make sure they have the information they need for programs, services, and assistance. Try to help them out and get through this together. Special payment arrangements are going to help our customers hopefully stay in business and return to their businesses so they can become long customers of NPU. We are starting to implement our return to work plan. We are going slow. We're going to be cautious. We're not in a business where if our entire line department or our entire underground crew were infected, we can easily go out and get other people to do this work. We have to make sure our crews are segregated. We have to make sure our crews are doing everything safe as we can. We're minimizing our work inside of houses. That's going to start relaxing in the next month, and we're going to be doing more customer work. But right now, it's basically emergency only. Laura has already shown you the work that's going on, monitoring, updating of our financial forecasts, and we are in such a fluid environment. Things are changing weekly, and hopefully we'll start seeing some of our customers returning to better situations. But right now, we're looking at this very closely, making sure we have the right cash, keep our business running, and moving forward. And the other thing that we're doing is working and watching what's going on in Washington and Hartford, working with our local legislators, making sure that if anything comes up that we can benefit from, or our customers can benefit from, we're providing the input that our legislators can use to make better programs, and also to make sure we're all taking advantage of everything we can for our customers and for the utility and city. Are there any questions on anything Laura brought up or anything I talked about?
Chris, it's Steve Becker.
Yes, Steve.
Have we noticed or do we sense any major client of ours not returning to solvency? I mean, is there some firm that we're overly concerned about now that we need to think about?
We do have some concerns on some of the customers. I think the ones that are hit the hardest right now are those small businesses, the restaurants. They have a hard time and good time sometimes, and they're especially hard hit when they had to shut down. We'll talk about our larger customers in the executive session and with some specifics on some payment arrangements we're going to be making with them. But for the majority of our customers are doing the best they can, and I think for the most part, if this thing starts returning back to normal soon, we should be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, Bill Wazika. Hey, have we checked with other utilities that are similar in size to NPU to see how their financials, how we, compare to their
It's
assessments?
so it's kind of interesting, Bill, because I've talked with the NEPA group, I have talked with the CMEC group, and we have some issues in our system because we are a casino community and because we have a lot of impacted, residential customers. We seem to be having a little more issues than some of the other utilities. There are some down towards the west end of the state where there's a lot of people working in New York. They're residential, mostly communities.
Yep.
Their revenues are actually going up, like we saw in our 5% revenue increase for residentials. So they're actually, and most of the people are working from home, able to pay their bills. So some of the utilities are doing pretty well. We have, casino-based businesses. Our largest water customer is the Mohegan Sun.
Yep.
Mohegan Sun is not, open at the time, so there's no revenue coming from them. So
Hey,
I
thank
think when you look around, there's more, the residential affluent communities doing very well. Customers, communities with the residence base like we have are a little more challenged.
Hey, thank you, Chris.
All right. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Chris.
All right, thanks.
The next item on the agenda is the retirement incentive presentation.
Steve is going to present some options for the board to consider for a retirement incentive. Steve, can you head this one up?
Yes, calling it up. Okay. Okay. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is quickly go over the objectives for this presentations. First thing, the reasons why the retirement incentive is being proposed. A review of the impact the pandemic has had and has continued to have on our NPU financials and how it relates to a proposal that we're going to offer tonight. A review of retirement incentive options that we have already reviewed with the board, and we're going to offer this extra option, and are also going to review the next steps to be taken if the board decides to pursue or not to pursue an incentive. The rationale behind the retirement incentive was really part of the fiscal year 21 budget process. The board had asked NPU staff to provide retirement incentive options to potentially reduce payroll costs. As a result of that request, we previously identified 24 employees eligible to retire within the fiscal year 21 time period. So that's through June of 2021. And we analyzed that, and we've also proposed how a retirement incentive could be managed to reduce costs. Potential savings would be achieved in really two ways. One, replacement employees would be hired at a lower salary step than the retiree who was vacating the position. We basically have 5 salary steps here in each position, and most eligible retires are at the top step, or step 4. new employees would be hired at a probationary salary step, which is typically about 20% less than step 4. So right away, replacing some of the higher paid employees with the lower paid over a period of years, there's savings realized in that way. The second way is we're looking at potentially, hiring any replacement employees on a delayed basis up to 4.5 months to create additional savings. So you wouldn't have the payroll during that period of the retiree or of the new hire. And when we looked at this, we saw that it would result in significant savings for fiscal years 21 through 23 and moderate savings in 24 and 25. Subsequent to that, most of the employees would be at step 4 if they did everything that they were supposed to do. So at that point, there would be no further savings. So obviously, we started this all back in end of last year, and we presented it to the board in January. Since then, we've had the impact of the coronavirus. The proposed plan, as originally laid out, was all pre-COVID financial forecasts. So subsequently, the pandemic has had a significant impact on our financials, which Laura and Jeff just identified, most notably in the area of our cash reserves. And as a result of the virus, we expect to continue to see an impact on cash reserves, at least for the next several months. We're working on those forecasts right into next fiscal year. So we look back at what we originally proposed for the retirement incentive program to determine if any adjustments could be made to the program that could also potentially alleviate some of the impact on the cash reserves. And we came up with another option, which I'd like to detail in the next few slides. And as Chris mentioned, it's a very dynamic situation. It changes, weekly, monthly. So we're continuing to look at that every single day. So just to recap, we are proposing one of 3 options for the board to consider for a retirement incentive for fiscal year 21, or any other option that the board may decide upon. But we're looking at these 3. The first option is not to offer an incentive. And without an incentive, employees may or may not choose to retire. So the impact on cost savings and cash flow is unknown, really. And just to put things into perspective, we currently have 14 employees that have been and are, eligible to retire, and they are not retiring. So in addition, we don't have the ability to determine specifically when an employee will retire if there's no incentive. So it is more difficult to plan for replacements to maximize any potential cost savings associated with that. The second option, which we presented back in January, as modified subsequent to that meeting, was to offer a $12,500 incentive, and NPU would determine the employee's retirement date. This would result in cost savings, but could negatively impact near-term cash flow due to the incentive, accrued sick time, and accrued vacation time payouts. So that would be a significant cash outlay, especially if we were to, elect employees to retire in the next 6 months while we're still under this potential pandemic situation. So the third option is a new option, which expands on option 2. And that option offers the $12,500 incentive to all eligible employees, but would also offer an additional $5,000 for employees if they were willing to defer their payouts to December of 2020. This has the added benefit of not only saving cost, but it would improve our near-term cash flow, and then we can decide when the employee retires and plan accordingly on the rehiring process. Just to go into a little more detail on how that would that program would work, because we haven't talked about that necessarily in the past. We would offer the 12,500 incentive to any employee eligible through June 30th of 2021, and we've identified 24 employees. We would offer an enhanced incentive option to employees who are eligible to retire through June 30th of 2020. We've identified 14 of the 24 employees that would be eligible for that enhanced incentive. The enhanced incentive would offer an additional 5,000, and NPU would select a retirement date somewhere between July 1st and September 30th. In return for the enhanced incentive, the entire incentive payment, accrued sick time, and accrued vacation time payouts would be deferred to the last payroll in December of 2020. And we would realize some cash flow benefits as a result of that. We would also defer replacements from 3 to 4.5 months where possible to realize additional cost savings. And I'm going to get in a little bit into the analysis that we did. Before I do that, did someone have a comment? No? Okay.
Can I ask a question? Steve, it's Mike.
Yes, Mike.
I just want to know this before I vote. Was anybody that's one of these 24 people involved in the planning stage of this?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So, so we've done financial forecasts to provide an overview of the potential results for this enhanced option. And as with any forecast, our analysis is based on assumptions, some of which are listed here. And we try to lay out this analysis to be as conservative as possible. And I'm not going to run through every single line here, but as you can see, assumptions in areas such as average retirement dates and lag times for refilling positions. And we're also assuming average retiree salaries and payout amounts, since we do not know who specifically will retire or who will take the incentive. So based on that, we just have to really base things on average data at this point. And the way we've laid this out is this is an example of the forecasted economics program. We are assuming a 50% participation rate in this case, and I'll sort of walk through how this works. X out of a couple of things here so I can see what I'm doing. And I will also be showing you results at other participation rates in a subsequent slide. So as I said, in year one, 24 employees eligible. And we're looking at this really in two periods: the July 1st through September 30th period, of which 14 employees are eligible, and they would be eligible for the enhanced option. And then the second group of employees from 10/1 through 6/30 of 21, they're 10 employees, and they would not be eligible for the enhanced option. They would be eligible just for the $12,500 incentive. So at a 50% participation rate, these are all employees eligible. At a 50% participation rate, that would be 7 employees in that first round, and 5 would be eligible in the second round. Then what we've done is we looked at the total salaries in each group. So those employees that are retiring, we looked at that 50% rate, what that would be, because what we want to really do is calculate what our expected expense was going to be versus what our actual expense or our forecasted expense is going to be, so we can determine if there was a savings or not. Our replacement salaries are 82.1% of the retiree salary. That's the step, the probationary step versus the step 4 that I was talking about earlier. And then we calculate a cost and a savings. Now, as you get into the out years, that's simply subtracting the retiree salaries or subtracting replacement salaries from the retiree salaries, and you would realize a savings. In this first year, it's a little bit more complex. So in this first round, what we're assuming is an average retirement date of August 15th. So we have 1.5 months of retiree salary in the fiscal year. And then we determine and we assume that we're not going to rehire any of those employees until January. So that's a 4.5 month lag. And then there's another 6 months in the fiscal year for the retiree, for the new hire salaries. So basically what replacement salaries represent, or with a salary or the savings that this represents, is 1.5 months at the retiree salary and 6 months at the new hire salary, and 4.5 months neither salary, and that would net a savings for this particular group of employees of $330,000, assuming a 50% participation. Similarly, if we look out towards the second round of employees that would be eligible for retirement at 50%, would actually be, we wouldn't really, none of these employees would be selected for retirement, even if they could retire in October until January. And the reason why we wouldn't do that is because when they retire, that's when their payout would be due. And we're very deferring payouts from the summertime out to December. So we really don't want anyone else to retire till January. And if we do that, basically, we're going to have a number of months. So we're going to have 7.5 months of retiree salary, because we're assuming a February 15th average salary for that group of employees, then a 3-month lag to roughly May 15th, and then 1.5 months of new hire salaries. So that's how that savings was determined, of $176,000. And then, so if you bring this across over the 5-year period, it's basically a $925,000 savings if we had a 50% participating rate, all based on average data. The next line down is the incentive rate that each of these employee groups would be able to receive. The total paid out based on the number of employees that would be taking the incentive. Below that would be the estimated sick and vacation payout for those groups of employees. Now that's at 100% of the 24 employees, so it's about 1.2 million. But at 50%, it's roughly half. It's going to be half that. So that's okay. And that brings it down to this line here. So before we get there, the total incentive paid out would be $185,000 at 50% participation rate. There is still a savings of $440,000. So that's net of the incentive payout at a 50% participation rate. The additional benefit we'd realize here is, in this case, at 50%, $460,000 deferment of cash that would go out the door until December, and we see that as being beneficial to our financial position. Any questions on that before I go on to the summary of the other participation rates? Okay. So here are the forecast economics at different participation rates, savings. We looked at 25% up to 100%, and we've using that same methodology, that same spreadsheet. We calculated, $432,000 to $1.48 million in potential savings over the next 5 years. So based on that, we've outlined the next steps. We've prepared all legal documents necessary to implement a retirement incentive program. It, of course, requires union review and approval of these agreements. And once the union approves them, they are tentative, subject to the board vote and approval of the entire program. So what we need to do to move forward is the board would need to vote on whether to offer the retirement incentive program or not. The details, specific details of the program, to make sure that the legal documents reflect that. and that, if approved, Chris would implement the program effective July 1st of 2020.
Steve, this is Bob. The union tentatively approved it, hasn't it?
Chris?
Bob, can you repeat that, please?
Yes. Hasn't the union tentatively approved this?
They saw the original document without the enhancements. They have looked at it. The unions can say whether it's fair or not. That's what they can evaluate. So conceptually, the unions are in favor of this, but we need to present what the board presents and then have them review that,
Sure.
or what the board approves.
I got a question for Chris. It's Mike.
Yeah, Mike.
So, Chris, you haven't really opined too much on this, or if you have, I didn't hear it. But do you feel strongly that this has a really good chance to work?
There will be savings, and it's a lot on how we manage it. It's one of those things where, depending on who takes it, has some implications. And we, when we presented the 50% case, that is our best estimate of what's going to happen. But you never know in a program like this. That's why Steve did from 25% up to 100%. But if we delay the hirings, it will have impact to service. It will have impact to our operation, but we feel we can manage it. And if we do delay and manage, we can definitely achieve these savings.
Steve, this is Bob. I mean, we have, what, 145 employees? So everyone. This is not a case of, electric boat or something doing something like this with 20,000 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Do you anticipate that there will be any service problems or other such things that would interfere with our operations?
No, and that's one of the key objectives here is by able to offer the incentive, we can pick the retiree's date so that we can plan accordingly. Some employees, we're just going to have to replace them on day one. But I think with enough time and enough planning, what we're planning on doing here is being able to adjust accordingly for a short period of time, and be able to realize these savings.
Okay.
Chris and Steve, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Chris and Steve, Bill Warzika, as you know, I'm very concerned about this. And first and foremost, did anybody approach the pension, the city's pension system to see whether or not what type of impact this would have? I read in the paper just the other day that the city is looking to, cut 16 jobs, no swimming at Spalding Pond this summer. There could be some issues with delayed payments on the pension plan that could affect the city's bond rating. These are all very, very, big concerns that I have, among other things, with these options that have been laid out, including hiring freezes. And, for one, I realize that public utilities isn't, doesn't have to adhere to the city's situation, but to see this type of a program, given the times that everybody is facing, I was wondering whether or not anybody approached the pension plan system in town.
So Bill, at a high level, I have spoken with the city manager and with Bridget from the HR department. So they're aware at a high level that we're considering this. And, the one thing is the retirement incentives are not pensionable. Okay. So that does not cause any issues at raising people's pensions. And all the people, we're not giving any time or any shortcuts to the retirement. Any of the people who are taking this retirement could retire on their own at any time during this time period as well. So, I don't think there'll be a major problem with the pension issues, but everybody is aware, and they did not voice any major concerns.
Okay. again, I have, other concerns that I've mentioned in the past. And I just don't think it's the right time to do this. Um, this sort of one thing I might consider that might change my mind a little bit is if we, the payout for vacation and sick time, if we could extend that out to a 3-year period, perhaps sometime in 2023, and then spread it out over 3 years um, to, you know, make it a little bit better for the utilities.
For a labor attorney, he recommended doing it in the same year as the retirement. We can proceed and dig a little deeper if that's what the board would like us to do.
At least for that, if you go back to the options, Steve.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so if, under the third option, if we could extend that from December 2020 to December 2023 and then spread out the payment over 3 years, I might be able to, go along with that.
Yeah, I know when we did ask when we asked our labor attorney that question to begin with, his first answer was, "You're fine to do that as long as it's within the same calendar year." Doesn't mean that we can't, ask again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
This is Stu Peel. It doesn't seem to me to be much of an incentive if we're going to delay their sick payout 3 years. It would seem at some point it's going to be a retirement punishment, not an incentive.
Well, I think we have to, Stu, I think we have to get something back. These are very highly paid individuals that are going to they're getting 100% of their, and I realize that's under contract, but that's virtually unheard of, to get 100% of your vacation and sick time. And it's a sizable chunk of money.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
Well,
that,
and that's
Bill.
consistent
I've
for our
never,
city workers.
yeah, I'm not an employment expert, but I've never heard that a company could keep your sick pay. I mean, they can limit your number of accrued hours, but they can't, any accrued hours, those are yours. They can't hold them back, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I never heard of that either. It's Mike. I'm not saying you're wrong, Bill. I just never heard of that. I thought,
I know that, as a state employee, I only got 25% of each when I retired. This is
we got to go 4 years to get it all.
What was that?
What period of time were you supposed to get it over?
Well, when there were incentives that were, and there hasn't been an incentive like this in 9 years, but or actually 10 years, or going on 11 years. But when there was, they automatically extended that payment out for sick and vacation time to a 3-year, period, and then, divvied it up over the payment, the outlay of money over a 3-year period. And that's basically, I tried to confirm, previous incentive programs, if they did the same thing, but I'm pretty sure that they did. It was never paid, at the time the person retired, or even 3 months, going out for 3 months, like this. I just
That's not a law.
no, I thought it was a contractual agreement.
It was a negotiating point, wasn't it, Bill?
Yeah.
I don't see any long-term benefit to do it the way you're talking about it. We need to deal with the economic reality of what.
We won't have to pay out the 100%, Steve, right away. We'll spread it out over a greater period of time when things recover. What happens if there's a resurgence of the COVID pandemic in the fall? I mean, there's just a lot of implications, I think.
No, I agree with you, but we're trying to make a basic economic decision that is prudent for the utility now. I tend to agree with the way Stu looks at it. Not necessarily what I want to extend it, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we are talking about a $700,000 savings in the 50% retirement category. I mean, I agree with you that if we extended the sick time and vacation time payment, it would be greater than that. But boy, I don't know how we turn our nose up at $740,000.
I would agree with you, Bob.
I think, Bob, that's, based on a number of assumptions that, nobody knows what will happen. I mean, they may decide not to take it. I mean, initially, this whole thing was triggered by changes in the contract in 2023 on spousal, contributions. And then the COVID came up and now it's a COVID issue. So
But
again,
if they don't, there's no downside. In other words, if they decide not to retire, they're they get no payment. There's no change in how they get compensated for vacation time and sick time. We're not risking money. This is going to work or it's not going to work. If it doesn't work, there's no outgo. If it does work,
It's a benefit to us. If it does work.
I mean, again, I think Steve did a great job here, but I mean, I would want details on assurances that, these positions won't be filled for the period of time that is prescribed. I don't know what type of training or certification that, people will need to achieve to in those positions going forward, and how long it will, what type of effort it'll take to get them up to speed. Initially, we talked about two of the positions not being filled. I didn't hear that. Is that off the table now? Of the two positions not being refilled?
It's just who takes the incentive. We can't guarantee who's going to take it and who won't. Of the 24, there are a few positions that would not get refilled.
Okay.
But, if 12 take it and it's not the right two, then we are hiring 12 people back.
This is Mike. I just want to chime in for a second, please. It's pretty impossible to predict who's going to retire and how many are going to take it. But if Chris feels it's realistic to assume that 50% will go for it, I'd have to say there's no one else with a more informed opinion than that. And there's no guarantee of anything in this world when you launch a program. And, that doesn't mean you shouldn't launch any programs. But what bothers me is if, let's say, a half or even more than a half take the program and some people get sick, from the epidemic, would we get caught in a short-handed situation that we couldn't manage? Or could we get temporary help in if we needed to? That kind of thing. I assume that Chris has thought that through, and if that was a big problem, he wouldn't be endorsing this plan, but I just kind of like to hear it from Chris.
Mike, every year we go through the senior team and the leadership team do some exercises towards succession planning. We want to make sure that we have the right people in place, trained and ready to go when people retire. This gives us a little more control over that. There are certain people that if they go out the door, we have to hire somebody to immediately fill in. Those are the minority of this. The majority, we can have a little lag. And if we look at some of our critical positions, one of the hardest things to do is to get, especially in this COVID environment, a trained lineman in here to work in an infected area.
Yeah.
We don't see any linemen, for instance, that fall into this category of the 24.
So basically, we can't constrict you for any minimum time to replace, because if it's a critical person, you can't do that. You just got to try to get a replacement as soon as you can. And I'm okay with that. That's common sense to me. But most of the positions,
a water plant operator, we only have 4, and we would need to replace as soon as possible, so we're not having too much overtime and too many issues of coverage. Some places,
that makes sense.
We are expecting in the next few years to potentially lose a couple of underground construction foremen.
So out of the 24 people, how many is a quarter of them key that would have to be replaced, or half of them? What is it like,
So we're looking at replacing 22 of the 24, but some don't have to be replaced as quickly as others.
That's what I'm asking. So how many have to be replaced quickly? Because Bill was concerned, that if we can't wait 3 or 4 months, we're not getting some of the economic benefit here, which is a good point. So I'm just asking you, I mean, is it 3 or 4 that are urgent, or is it 12, to replace?
It's the minority that have to replace immediately, not the majority. And so we could manage it. I'm not saying there wouldn't be some impact, but we can manage it, and staff feels that we can adequately manage the majority of these being delayed for that,
Yeah.
3 to 6 month
Because
period.
I certainly wouldn't want to tell you that you couldn't replace somebody because 3.5 months didn't go by. I wouldn't want to do that.
The other thing I wouldn't want to see either, if they're engineering positions and you're not able to hire right away and you have to go out to bid to a contractor. I mean, those costs could be, much higher to hire a contractor to do work that ordinarily would be done, by staff.
Not necessarily, Bill. Coming from that side of the world, I would say effectively you could hire a contractor, an independent contractor, to do some of that work, and it may save you money and not cost you money, would be my opinion.
That'd be the first for me, Steve.
Conceivable.
But when we look,
I've
we
been on
look at
that
things.
side of it more times than I tend to comment about.
Yeah,
I believe that. This is Mike. I can believe that.
I know,
we
Mike. You
Experience.
understand that representing contractors.
Yeah, we can't staff up to design a sewer plant in house and bring that expertise in and afford that expertise and a staff. But when we're looking at the routine work that we do, that we are staffed to do, we should be able to keep that work in house and get that work done. We're also in the next 3 to 6 months forecasting much less capital expenditures and cutting back on some of this work.
Look, the bottom line, and this is a prudent economic decision that NPU should make. And if it wasn't that way, Chris, I don't believe you would have presented to us in any fashion. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. It's Mike. I think it's a reasonable. The risk is not that great, and it might save a significant amount of money. No guarantees in this world of anything.
Absolutely. We're playing what if. We could spend all night here talking about what if 20%, 40%, 80%. This is the best set of facts that we have, the knowledge that we have, and the prudent way to take it on is the way it's been presented, I believe.
Yeah, this is Bob, I would just say two things. I mean, first of all, this is a way to potentially save a tremendous amount of money with no outgoing financial risk.
Correct.
And I think that's something we want to do. And the second thing is, we're not doing layoffs. We're not doing furloughs. We're not doing things to hurt the employees. We put together a plan that works with the employees so that they do what they want and we get a savings. I think that's a great thing. And the third thing, I guess, I worked at the state for 10 years in the 80s. Bill was there a lot longer than I was. But I don't know what they have. Is 50,000 employees in the state? It's a huge number. I don't think the Department of Administrative Services, if they did something like this, would have a good sense of what, let's say, the state treasurer's office, where I was concerned about. We have 145 employees. Chris knows every single one of them. He knows what everybody's job is, what everybody's plans are. I think that means he can manage this process, whereas in a much bigger organization, you can't do that.
Point well taken, Bob. All I can say is that, on one side you have NPU, and then you have the city that only what I read in the newspaper, they're going to have cuts on, I think there were 15 or 16 jobs that would be cut on, and I don't know. at this point, I'm not satisfied that the analysis was detailed enough and that it's going to be as good as it's made out to be. So
That's okay.
that's my point.
All right, well, if there's more discussion, we can surely continue to talk, but it might be appropriate to have one of the commissioners introduce a resolution and have us vote on it.
All right, I'll put forward a resolution. Now, exactly what are we voting for the NPU to go forward with this plan as we discussed? Are we finished discussing the details of the plan and they're just going forward, or what exactly are we voting on?
Well, it's your call, but I would guess that the resolution would be to follow the second option or the third option.
Okay, so there's no amendments to the presentation, so.
Not yet. You put it up, do the way you want to. And
So
everyone
they
has
can,
got-
so, the last time we talked, I thought the third option was the one that we were,
12-5.
that we had, yeah, right, so it was the 17.5 total. So is there any discussion that we don't want to entertain I would entertain the third option here as a resolution.
Do we have a second?
Steve Becker, I will second Stu's option number 3.
All right, all those in favor of option number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Bob, you got to give everybody the opportunity to comment if somebody wants to.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yes, I guess it's
No, give everyone.
what we're talking about, but if anyone wants to comment, please do so.
Well, this is Bill Warzika. Looking at option 3, if they were able to extend the payment out for vacation and sick time to 2021 or 2022, and we get a written letter from the city's pension plan that there will not be an adverse impact to the city's pension plan, I would perhaps go along with that.
Bill, I think that's probably not something that's realistic, but I understand your comment. Okay, Bob, you can move the question if you want. If no one else.
All right, I'll move the question.
Call for the vote then.
Yes. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
You're talking about utilizing what we call offer number 3
Yes,
as a
presentation
item.
Yes,
Steve presented it today, basically, to
yes,
us.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike votes for it.
Steve Becker, yes.
Okay, Stu Peel, yes.
Bill Warzika, no.
Bob Staley, yes. The resolution passes 4-1. Thank you very much. Now, consistency is not always a virtue. Early on in the meeting, I missed a resolution on the gas award that we received. And then I subsequently missed a resolution on the agenda acknowledging the contributions made by the unions and NPU employees to being flexible for all of the COVID reaction. And that should be in your packet. And I'm going to go back to that now. And if anyone wants to offer a motion to congratulate the unions and the employees for their willingness to cooperate, this would be the appropriate time to do it.
I'll make such a motion. It's Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second?
Stu Peel, second.
Very good. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that it really is a distinguishing characteristic at Norwich Public Utilities, I think, that we have employees who are so cooperative and don't fight everything and try to do the best for NPU in the city. And I think that's a tradition. and it's a great thing, and it's something that we need to thank them for. The next item on the agenda is to recess this meeting and go into the Sewer Authority meeting. So if we have a motion to, and a second to adjourn this meeting and go into the Sewer Authority, I would appreciate it.
I'll make the motion. It's Mike.
I'll second. Bill Wozika.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. And I will call to order the meeting of the Sewer Authority. And the first item on the Sewer Authority agenda, as is the case with the NPU agenda, is a period of public comment. We did not have any for NPU. If we have anybody from the public who wants to comment during the comment period on the Sewer Authority, we would invite you to speak up now. Once again, if there are any members of the public who have comments about the sewer operation and would like to speak, please do so. And hearing nobody, I assume that there is no one on the call and no one interested in making comments. The next item is the minutes of the Sewer Authority meeting held on April 28th. I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 28th, 2020.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Michael second it.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? The minutes pass unanimously. The next action item is there are some questions as to whether or not we formally voted to approve the sewer budget for fiscal year 2021, apparently. The vote was overall NPU budget and was documented properly, but out of an abundance of caution, we should formally vote to approve the 2021 Sewer Authority budget this evening. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second, Stupio.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? There are none, so it is adopted unanimously. Is there any other business, Chris?
Not for the Sewer Authority this evening.
All right. So we have a motion to adjourn the Sewer Commission meeting and return to the NPU board meeting.
I'll make the motion. It's Mike.
Thank you, Michael. A second?
I'll second.
Stupio.
Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? It passes unanimously. We're back into the NPU board meeting, and it is time, if we so vote, to go into executive session to discuss confidential, trade secret, and commercially valuable confidential or proprietary information not subject to inspection or public disclosure pursuant to sections 12105 and 7232A of the Connecticut General Statutes. This information is commercially valuable, confidential, and proprietary, and is not appropriate for public disclosure pursuant to Public Act number 98-212. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make the motion to go to executive session. Bill Wozika.
Thank you, Bill. Is there a second?
Yeah, Michael second that.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It passes unanimously. And Chris, I believe we do not have any public business once we come out of executive session.
That's correct, Bob.
For Claire's benefit. Hi, Claire.
And the rest of the staff as well.
Yes, yes. All right, very good. We are moving into executive session. We have a separate WebEx connection for executive session, so we can terminate this and we can all hook up to the executive session link, and we'll get started.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, was I supposed to do that too? Michelle, am I supposed to do that? Michelle, did they say I?
Sorry. He didn't say, he hung up. So want me to ask him, text him?
No, but I think I'm supposed to. What what do I do? I go to the,
There's another link that was sent, the executive session link that you have to go into.
okay, I'm gonna go find that.
Okay, text me if you have trouble. I'm gonna wait for a few.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Hey, Carrie, is that you?
Yeah,
You gotta mute yourself. You're on the board meeting.
Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound.
I don't
If you
know
do not
how.
know your
I'll have to.
attendee number, press pound to continue.
If you get out of this and go into
Yeah.
your calendar, Steve had
That's what I
sent,
did, but somehow I was still in this one. Hang on. I'm gonna be so late. Can you hear me still?
I can.
Great, thanks. Sorry about that. So as I mentioned, the top 100 customers represents about 3 million of our normal 8 million in monthly sales.
The critical one to get on back on board as the chairman, right?
Oh, my volume was, hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Steve.
Okay, great.
Looks like we got Stu. Oh,
I'm
Mike.
here.
Mike, right?
Yeah. I want to thank again the person who decided to put the meeting link at the top of the agenda. That makes it about 1,000 times easier.
I'm glad to hear it worked.
It worked 3 times tonight.
By the time it gets easy, it's going to be when we come back to having regular meetings again. You watch.
Yeah.
All right, so, I don't know, we've got,
Steve.
Person, right?
no, we don't have any members.
We need one more. I'll take dibs. Bill will get on.
Bill's here.
Well, Mike's on. And Steve.
All right. We looks like we got the whole
Motion
contingent
to
here.
adjourn.
We got all 5.
I'm
Okay.
here.
So moved.
Thank you, Stu. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Michael second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think this is a record short meeting. And we're getting quite good at this WebEx stuff.
Much smoother tonight. Yes.
And on that, Chris, I sent you a note, but I don't think I have a link for the Business Park North meeting tomorrow.
I will get that out as soon as the meeting's done, Bob.
You're the best.
Make sure everybody's well informed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.